Hi everyone, this is Jim. I'm back from my tournament that I went to, the U.S. Amateur West in Tucson. I thought I would do round by round coverage of this tournament, try and give you a feel for what it's like to play in one of these 3-day weekend tournaments. Kind of an intense experience in some respects. So I'll start with a little travel log here. I got into Tucson, and the temperature was in the 90s, which is a nice temperature for this time of year. It wasn't super hot. After I left, and this week, the temperature is supposed to get up to the 110s, so that would have been pretty extreme. But in the 90s, it's nice spring weather. And the desert was blooming, so these are some pictures of cactus flowers. And yeah, it was an interesting looking cactus tree there, looking sort of like a person holding a bird there. And then this is the scenery around the hotel where the tournament was held. There's Tucson itself is on a plain, but there's mountains all around, and pretty interesting scenery. I wasn't staying at the fancy hotel. I was staying down the street at the Red Lion Inn. This is a picture of, I just like these little displays. They have them all over the desert Southwest, just little arrangements of cactuses, and they're like little works of art. This was, for example, taken outside a McDonald's, and here's another cactus flower, and back to the beginning. Okay, so that's it for the pictures. So in this tournament, I was in the championship section. This is it's an amateur tournament, so there's no masters, and the championship section is the top section. My rating for the purposes of pairings was 1865. The championship section includes ratings from 1600 up to 2200. And so there were 17 boards in the first round. That means 34 players, and I was playing on board 16. And I was paired down. My opponent was a lower rated player. So what that means is my rating was slightly above the average for this tournament. So I'm near the middle of the tournament, but just a little bit above, so I get paired down in the first round. And my opponent has the white pieces. So he kicks off with e4, and I play c5. I want to win this game. I don't want to get into a totally symmetric position or find some quick tactical drawing line and run into some quick tactical drawing line in the e4, e5 opening. So for a fighting opening, I like the Sicilian. Also play the French for similar kinds of reasons as well, because you get a long game and you don't get you have lots of chances. So my opponent plays knight c3 here, and this is an unusual move. Knight f3 is a more normal move, but not that unusual. It's like the second choice here, and it's a very flexible move. White has not given up on the idea of d4. d4 could be played later, so this could introduce either a closed Sicilian or an open Sicilian. It's just kind of waiting to see what black plays, and it also introduces the Grand Prix attack, which is what happens in this game. I play knight c6, the main response, and f4. So that's the Grand Prix attack, and the idea of getting in that knight c3 move before playing f4 is that in the traditional or the original move order, the Grand Prix attack, just throwing the two pawns forward without the knight moves in, black had this gambit line with the d5 that was quite good, the Tal gambit. So this prevents that, and this is an interesting way for white to play. Actually, black equalizes pretty easily. So you don't see this at all at the top level, but I think at the class level, I think it's a reasonable way to play. Even though black has equalized technically, white still has a lot of initiative and ideas for breaking through. So not a bad choice from white. Anyway, I go g6. That's one of the ways to play this. You can also play with e6 or d6. But g6 just to try and slow down this f5 pawn push, which is one of white's ideas here. Let's see, white continues developing. I develop, and now he goes bishop c4, which is the second choice here. I don't know if I've seen this move before. It's kind of asking me to play the move e6, which is on my agenda anyway. So I don't think this is the best choice here, although it was like the second choice in the database. The top choice, if we go back, the top choice is bishop to b5. And the line might continue from here. If I remember the line, I would have played knight to d4, putting some pressure on the knight. And then if white castles here, you take the bishop. There's one little trick here. If white takes with the knight, you don't take back with the bishop, which I might have been tempted to do, but you actually take back with the pawn to gain a tempo on this knight and push him back to a bad square. And this is a good position for black. Anyway, but playable. I mean, it's still in the range of about even, so it's not like white. That is the main line of the Grand Prix attack. So that's the kind of thing you might run into if your opponent knows what he's doing. Okay, but anyway, white went bishop c4 here. I go e6. Like I said, I was planning to play that anyway. And then he played d3. Now we're still in the opening book, and there is a line in the book with the immediate f5 push, just to show this idea. That's often the case, that f5 is what white wants to play in this opening, trying to get some lines open. It seems a little strange to me to play it here because white hasn't even castled yet. Usually you want to get your rook lined up behind the f-pawn before you push it. But this actually was a line in the opening book that went like this: knight to e7, pawn takes, and then d3. And from here, black can castle or play d5. And it seems like black is doing okay here. White's going to castle too, but the rooks will kind of cancel each other out on the f-file. But it's just showing that you can get that f5 push in pretty quick, and that is one of the ideas with this attack. Anyway, he went with d3. I went with knight to e7, and he castled. And now we've been in a very unusual, or a rare line in the opening book, and now I play a move that's completely out of the book. Although it seemed kind of logical to me, I play knight to a5, so we're just out of the opening book. Just to continue, the other moves available here, or the ones that are on the database, are d5, which makes a lot of sense also, going after this bishop, or just castling. So there's no particular danger in this position, and black is doing fine. But there is, you still have this long-term worry about the push of the f-pawn. And so I thought immediately harassing this bishop was a good idea, because one of the ideas is that this bishop can become strong on this diagonal after black is castled and these pawns have come forward to disrupt and open some lines. The bishop and the rook can coordinate on the f7 square. So if I can get rid of this bishop, I thought that would surely make life pretty easy for me. Let's see, he chose to drop his bishop back here, and I just castled. I realized I didn't have to take the bishop right away. It has nowhere to go. Although he could have tried, if he wanted to avoid exchanges, pushing the bishop out here to a4. But I don't think the bishop has any good role out there on a4, and I can just always push it back with a6 and b5 anyway, and then capture it. So anyway, I just left the tension in the position, left the exchange hanging. I played queen e1, and then here I didn't see anything better at this point, and I decided to just go ahead and take the bishop off. So he takes back, and I push on with d5. And now he plays a little bit of a slow move, king to h1. But, well, it makes some sense in these positions to get away from this diagonal. But I think this is the point. I mean, I haven't got anything yet coming out to the diagonal. Maybe queen out here to the diagonal, or bishop to here. Let's draw that again. Bishop to here might be interesting. To put a piece on that diagonal if his king were still there. But I don't know. Here's another place where if I was white, I would have considered just pushing on with these pawns, or maybe rearranging my pieces a little bit to prepare that pawn push. I don't know if that king to h1 move is really helping out in this case. Okay, so he went king h1. I played b6. I want to open up a line for my bishop. I mean, I kept expecting white to either push a pawn forward, either one, or to take. And, if white's going to take here, which sometimes happens, that opens up this diagonal for the light squared bishop. So I was kind of leaving it there, waiting for some move from white to clarify the situation. But he never pushed these pawns forward. So I think that was actually a mistake. I think white needed to, at some point, push those pawns and go for something. Anyway, he went bishop d2 here, just kind of developing his pieces, but not with any big plan that I saw. And then he played the really unusual move rook a2. Now this does have an idea. He wants to mobilize his knight, and he doesn't want to hang the a pawn. But but probably not the best way to play this. I mean, it's a funny looking move, and is this rook is subject to harassment, as we'll see in the game. Right here, the chess engine wants to play e5, and so that's one way that that white can proceed in the Grand Prix attack. Instead of pushing on with f5 and opening up lines, push on with e5 and try to stifle this bishop. Now I can push on with d5 and open up this line for my bishop, so there's counters to that. And I can also prepare f6 to undermine it. So it's not like it's the end of the world. I think black is still better in this position, but probably e5 is the best move for white here. Anyway, he goes rook a2. I go knight to c6. He goes knight to e2, bring this knight into the game as per his plan. And already I have this idea of knight to b4, but I was just trying to play that at a moment when it was most effective. Right now it can get traded off, so I'm trying to think of ways to distract his queen and his bishop so I can play knight to b4. It's a fork, right? It's hitting this rook and it's hitting the undefended pawn on c2. So I start by exchanging some things in the center. Pawn takes, pawn takes. Since white never initiated any action in the center, I felt it was time for me to do something. And then I pushed on with e5. And the idea is if he trades, then I will have a weakness on e4 here that I can go after. And the move I thought was most interesting for white here was f5. He didn't play f5, but if he pushes on here, I looked at this with the chess engine, it thinks black is still better. It likes this line. It likes knight to b4. I don't know if I would have thought of this, but the point of knight to b4, you can give up a pawn over here, but you can win the e-pawn. So his e-pawn has become weak. So that part of my plan was working. Let's see, if he takes, the line goes like this. Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight to g3, defending the e-pawn, and a5 defending the my b-pawn. So that was the chess engine line. I still have to worry about this pawn push here, but it's adequately covered at the moment. And I can put some pressure on this pawn. And the chess engine thinks black is just better here. There's also this weakness on c2. That's a backwards pawn that I can pile up on, whereas my pawns are pretty secure in this configuration. So all in all, about a +1 advantage to black in that, even with best play. So bishop to c3 was a bit of a strange move. Again, not pushing pawns, not exchanging, just kind of leaving the pawns there. So I decided to go ahead and take. I want to create this weakness, and when I do that exchange, I'm opening up frontal pressure against the e-pawn, which is isolated, and I have this bishop here looking at it as well, like we saw in those other lines. It does give up the bishop pair, which I had as an advantage up to this point. But, I was willing to do that in exchange for the pressure on the e-pawn. So he grabs the f-pawn now, and now I go knight to b4. So I'm hitting the rook, I'm hitting this c-pawn, and I'm hitting this e-pawn in the center. I didn't see a way that he could defend against all of these threats. He tried queen to c3 check, and we'll come back to that. That's the game. But the chess engine points out there is a different move order here that is kind of interesting. If he just drops the rook back, and I play knight takes c2, forking the queen and the rook. Now we can play queen c3 check. And now this is tricky, right? I have to save my knight. So I don't know if I would have wandered into this line or not. And then you can save the knight this way. Fortunately, there's no pawn that can attack the knight, so I'm not going to lose a piece here. And in fact, black stays a little better, but white can exchange off that knight or build up pressure on it, maybe win a pawn back there. So it's not like a big advantage for black anymore. So that would have been, if white had defended in the most accurate way, that would have kind of got white back in the game. As it was, the immediate queen c3 check leaves black with a significant advantage. Although, there's one last trick here. When I was calculating the sequence, way back at this point, before taking, I had noticed after the exchange and this exchange and that exchange that his queen could come here with check. And I was planning to block with the move pawn to f6. Just leave my king there and play pawn to f6, which maybe is not obvious that it's a problem right in this position. It looks like a perfectly reasonable move when I was doing the calculation. But if we go forward in the game, I took, and he took, I took, he took, and I played knight b4, he played queen c3 check. Now, the question for you is, what happens if I play f6, my intended move? What happens if I play f6 in this position? Okay, it's time to pause the video. If you don't see the answer, you should be able to spot this one pretty quickly. I'm going to give the answer away. Yes, if I play f6, he plays knight to e6 check. That's a nasty fork. That is a very nasty fork. So this, I think, is a great example of why you should do a blunder check every move. Even if you've calculated a sequence out in advance and every move is happening exactly as you predicted, you still should not just blindly play those moves, but you should stop before each move and say, yes, but I know that's what I planned, but is that a blunder? And in fact, what I planned was a blunder. A planned blunder, as it were. And I had to fall back to king g8. But king g8 is fine. And white is, I mean black. Black is just a pawn up in this position. And so I'm okay here. He finally drops his rook back now. And I grab the pawn. And I'm also hitting the c2 pawn here. Let's see, he played rook a to d1, hitting my queen. And I went queen to c7, which is kind of a natural move to me. The chess engine wants to play queen to e7, which not the first move I would have thought of. I mean, I thought of the move queen e7. I have to move my queen out of the way of the rook, and I don't have a whole lot of squares to go to. But putting your queen where it can be forked, I mean, where you immediately walk into this pin, it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. But I guess the point is, first of all, you always have this move f5 in reserve, so you can defend that bishop with a pawn, and there's no pawn that can harass that bishop. And that's point number one. And point number two is over on c7, where I moved the queen, there's some subtle tactics here that I missed out on. So he played a very tricky move here. My opponent starting to, being a pawn down, he's starting to get into, I guess, a tactical mode here, trying to get it back. And he played the very interesting move, knight to d4. Putting the knight there where I can't take it. I can't take it for two reasons. One is that if I take it, he takes my queen. But the other reason is that pawn is also defending my knight. If I take his knight, he'll take my knight. So even after unpinning with the queen, nothing is really hanging. So that knight is really secure there. But the chess engine found an even more interesting knight move here, which is knight to g5. And it's something to always watch out for when the queen is on this diagonal, and you have this pawn structure here, which has created an opening for white to hop in on the dark squares there. You know, the knight to g5 is hitting my bishop, and I had thought about this move, and I had been planning to play bishop to f5. And might not be obvious here, but this is a losing move, bishop to f5. So if you want to see if you can spot the tactic for white in this position. Okay, the killer move for white here is knight to h5, threatening checkmate. That'll wake you up. And if I take the knight, then he can, here, let's erase those arrows. If I take the knight, then he takes my bishop, because when I move my bishop here, it was just defended by the pawn, and knight to h5 is exploiting that. So knight to h5 is a possible move here, and I really have to kind of wiggle and squirm to get out of this position alive. So that would have been good for white. So interesting how these things can turn very quickly. Anyway, in this position, that's why queen c7 was a little bit dangerous. The queen really needed to be over here on e7 to help defend the king side. And I always thought pushing the f-pawn forward would save me, because the queen could defend along here. But again, we have the knight hopping into hopping into e6 as a threat. So anyway, queen to c7 was played, and he went knight to d4. So we get this interesting line here, and I had to figure out how to best deal with this situation. There is a good line here for black. I did not find the best line, but it relies on a tactic that I didn't spot. I spotted some of the tactics that are coming up, but I didn't spot this particular one. So, well, once again, if you want to play guess the move here, see if you can find an idea for black in this position. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there ought to be something, just because he's moved his knight onto a square where it is hanging almost. But as I mentioned, there's two pieces that are preventing it from being taken there. So it's not so obvious how you can exploit this. Anyway, yeah, pause the video now if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. The key move is moving some rook to d8, which is a move I thought about. It's a move I thought about because it's a kind of a natural move in this position. You see this knight is hanging here, attacked by a pawn and defended by these tactical means. Maybe just piling up pressure there would win it. But I didn't see how it actually won any material. But what I was thinking was he could just move his knight away, right? And he can move his knight to b5, kicking my queen, opening up this line here. His rook is defended, my rook is defended. And so it didn't seem like it gained me anything. I was looking for some way to try and exploit this. But there is a killer move here for black. And, well, yeah, I'll give you one more chance to see if you can spot the idea for black here. Okay, the idea is queen takes f4. And you have a classic double attack on the back rank. The king is over here, so if I land a piece on the back rank, then he's in big trouble. Actually, this rook could come off with check. So you might think that white could escape that way, but I still have two pieces looking at the back rank, so the queen can't be taken, and the queen moves aside. If the rook moves aside just to protect things, then, well, I've just gained a whole piece. I just won that knight. So that would have been a pretty cool tactic. Anyway, in the game, I just started my process of unpinning by playing queen to b7. And next I was going to move the knight, so he was going to be forced out of this position he was in. He went knight b5 right away, looking at this fork here. And I decided to counterattack his queen. I played knight d5. So, if he attacks my queen, I attack his queen. I think I come up better in that exchange. So he traded off my knight. I took with the bishop. And then I saw this tactic coming up, and I decided to allow it. So it's a tactic that just results in a lot of material being exchanged. It doesn't gain any material for white. But if you want to take a second, see if you can spot the tactic that white played here. Okay, he just grabbed my bishop here with his rook, and I take back, and then he comes in here with the knight to c7, hitting my queen and hitting my rook. So he gives up the exchange and then gets the exchange back. But the net effect of that is nothing great. So it just made my job easier. So it was a mistake to play those tactics, but I was kind of expecting him to do it. Sometimes you can, with a lower rated player, you can put some tactics on the board and tempt them into playing them, even if they don't gain anything. So let's see. He continued with h3, getting his king a little more space to escape from the back rank if he needs it. I just start lining up. I think at this point we'll start going through a little quicker. There's some maneuvering here, and he couldn't quite find a way to break through here. He tried to activate his pieces, and then finally at this point I decided to try and get the queens off. That had been an idea for a while, just going to rook and pawn, endgame a pawn up, and try and win the endgame. And so I played queen to e4. And he doesn't have to take. In fact, there's another interesting line here. I don't know if I really calculated this one. This rook takes a7 here. I assumed that I would just trade queens here. So maybe that's what he didn't like. But it takes a little bit of calculation. Say I take the queen off, he takes back, and then I can activate my rook and then go after these pawns. And so I stay a pawn up in this line. He can attack my pawn. I take his pawn. He takes my pawn. And now I can take this pawn, although I don't have to. I could also just start moving my pawns forward. But basically, I still have an extra pawn, even if I don't take that pawn, because these two pawns are held back by my one pawn. So I get into my rook and pawn endgame a pawn up. So that would have worked out okay. But he went with queen takes e4, the other way of playing this. And in this position, let's see, he went rook e1, attacking it. In this position, I make a kind of a mistake. It's black is just winning in this rook and pawn endgame, but the best way to win it is to play rook to d2 here. Just give up that pawn and start going after, activate this rook, activate your rook, and go after white's pawns and just try scooping him up. He gets this pawn. You get this pawn. He can come in here with check and grab the a pawn, but then you get another pawn over here. And this outside pass pawn that black is going to get in this scenario, well, first of all, just to limit the damage, he's got to move his rook back here, and then I can start bringing my king over. But just in general, this outside pass pawn is a much more valuable commodity than the passed pawn that I get in the game. I get a passed pawn in the game that's in the center of the board, this one. So if I can give this pawn up in exchange for getting an outside pass pawn, that's a much better endgame for me. So this is a little bit of a mistake, just standing behind this pawn. I was just going to bring my king up and try and push it through, but it's a little bit congested here. It's a little bit awkward to do that with pawns on both sides. There's not a whole lot of maneuvering room here. And there's chances for white to blockade. So let's see, he started off with king g1, I went king f6. He goes king f2, and I went king e5. And right here, if he had gone king e6, which I had been expecting, king e3 rather, then the chess engine does not find a way to win this position. I was thinking, I would get active on one of these files. I've got a file on either side of the king, but all these key squares seem to be under white's control. So a little bit of shallow thinking. Maybe I can push my pawns forward. I guess that's the next thing to try, and to create. Trying to force him to trade off some of these pawns so that there's some squares open up for my rook to come in. So that would be my plan here. I would still push for a win, but the chess engine does not find a win in this position. So backing up, the engine wants to come with my king this way, and thinks that ends up a little better. So that's a bit mysterious to me. But I guess just standing behind the pawn and having his king, I guess my king is more flexible over here. That's the difference. And an interesting thing about this position is that he can't easily attack the pawn from the side. If I have control of these squares, the only way that his king can attack the pawn is from the front, and that'll block his rook. So he has trouble coordinating, two pieces attacking that pawn. So I'll stay a pawn up. But, it'll take a certain amount of maneuvering to figure out how to convert that endgame. Anyway, what I played was king e5, and what he played was c3. And that's a big mistake, because that opens up this square for my pieces. So now we can just kind of step forward through the rest of the game. I hop on this file immediately. And after pushing my pawns forward, I eventually bring the rook in. And then he opposed the rook. I mean, I have a lot of pressure along this third rank here. And I'm probably going to pick up a pawn some way or other by pushing my pawns forward. So I'm winning at this point, but this makes it a lot easier because this just goes into a winning king and pawn endgame. I push the g pawn forward first. That's important because it gives me an extra tempo with the h pawn anytime I want it. But I don't even need the tempo. I just have to run him out of moves. So I push my pawns forward, and there when I push to c4, I didn't even need to take this pawn. I just want to get the tempo. So I push this pawn forward, and he has no moves other than moves that give way with the king or give up material. He continued to play on. He could have resigned here, but he just went for a stalemate trick. So he pushed all his pawns forward so as to get a position where he had no moves. Right here, he gave up the last pawn. So now he has no moves, but except for with his king. So I just have to make sure that his king always has one square to go to. But it always does. And so that's checkmate. So that was how the first game ended. A good start to this tournament, but I was playing against a lower rated opponent, so not too unexpected. And I'll continue with round 2 tomorrow. See you then. Bye.